rock is what we're doing. Here's what I used for heating the rock. It's a turkey roaster. I have since graduated to a electronic kiln that allows me to program exactly all the temperatures, the time, the heat, so that sort of thing. And but this works very good too. Manual control, fairly large capacity. If you can get a hold of one, they're inexpensive. I got mine out in the cities, and I paid more for having it delivered than I paid for this. So that I can get it. I've been at auctions and tried to get them before, but they go fast. I know Michael's looking for one. So what's cooking? What I targeted was smaller pieces, less than 10 centimeters long. The reason for that is Knife River Flint, if it's fairly large, larger than that, fairly easy to work. The idea here is that the smaller pieces, if you heat treat them, they're easier to work. They pressure flake a lot better, and they percussion flake better. Let's see, when you place it in there, that's just how you arrange them in the kiln. Put thinner pieces on the sides, thicker pieces in the center to avoid pot lidding. Pot lidding, if you're not familiar with that, it gets a little round, like a fish scale, and it just gets a whole bunch of them. And you can't, it basically ruins the material. So what I did is I came up with a best formula for heat, and so this chart is the ramp and soak. Ramp is the raising the heat level at a certain interval, and then soak is how long you leave it at that interval to treat it. And that can vary. Knife River Flint, I found, responds best slow ramping up and slow ramping down. It takes about 3 days to complete a heating cycle from when it's first put in there and until you take it out. One of the things I can't point to it is what you want to do is you want to have a fairly long cycle of heating it. They're about 200 degrees, 150, 200, before you start turning the heat up beyond boiling. Because you got to try and drive out as much water as you can. Water is what will crack it and also do a lot of the pot lighting if it gets trapped inside. Strangely enough, after you heat treat it, drive the water off, it apparently is supposed to work better if you soak it in water. So I've read that since, and I've got about, I don't know, 10 pounds of it soaking in a 5-gallon bucket at home. I'm going to see if that really makes a difference. Here's pot lid damage. I don't know if you can see that very well. But that makes it pretty much useless. It occurs ramping in either too fast or too slow. Generally, some pot lidding damage will occur no matter what you do. Thicker pieces are more susceptible, manifest in small scales, pot lids. Damaged areas, totally unusable. And again, it happens no matter what you do. My conclusions. Okay, the top point was heat treated. Well, the bottom point was not. I tried to pick very similar looking Knife River Flint. If it shows that the heat treated piece will become darker usually. This isn't exactly what always happens, but generally it will become darker. And it'll get a waxy luster to it. less step fracture during percussion flaking and pressure flaking. Long pressure flakes were easier to move after the heat treatment. So, I don't know, you can see on the other ones, but yeah, I guess there's one nice long one right down the center, went all the way across on the top one.
Greg, does it make any difference how much vegetable matter is
It
within?
doesn't seem to. I haven't noticed that at all. If there's cracks in it, it's just it's a rusty crack that goes through it. You know, it's always it seems to be on bedding lines, but not if you get a good solid piece. It doesn't seem to matter. Here's some other ones that I've made that were heat treated. Some of the things that happen is durability is lost when you heat treat, especially Knife River Flint. The edges, workpiece are more susceptible to damage from use. Projectile points are not greatly affected because, you know, they're one shot, one time use anyway, more than likely you shoot it and lose it or break it anyway. So it does keep a good sharp edge, it just doesn't last long. Yeah, generally they have a short life. But you can see the shine, the luster, and the darkness that comes in with it. So, summary, generally smaller tools or projectile points will be present in a collection of material at a site. Heat treating smaller pieces of Knife River Flint material makes better use of available material. So my vision here was that part of the reason you heat treated is these smaller pieces that you normally couldn't do anything with. You heat treat them, and all of a sudden now you can make points out of them, and it allows you to use your material more extensively, use it up. It does reduce the durability, and waxy luster is present. That's what you would look for. Darker material and larger pieces generally present are easier to work without heat treatment. So then I heat treated some Edwards Plateau chert. Now the thing with Edwards Plateau is sort of a generalized term. I mean, you can get Edwards Plateau, you can get Lampasas, you can get, there's some from Comanche County, and it's different, it's Edwards Plateau chert, but it is different. Some of it is better than others. I tried to keep the experiment with similar chert. There's one individual I get out off eBay who pretty much sends a consistent type. And what I did is I went through different temperatures and different hours of actually heating it. So the bars, the vertical bars are the temperature, the temperature, and the line is how long I held it at that temperature. And so this batch, I purposely heated it a lot, slowly at the beginning, to make sure that all the water was driven off. You can see it was 29 hours at 150 and then 12. And then 250 would have been the first time you had to worry about heating. And I still wanted to heat it slowly. And when I brought it back down at 300, and at 300 I just basically shut off the heat and then let it naturally cool. It's in a sand matrix that I put it in so that the heat is more even, and it stops when they do explode, they don't go all over the place. So they stay within a So in this case, this batch had a lot of pot lids, which surprised me. It's brittle to work, and there was a tendency of the breaking in the oven, larger rock pieces I put in there. And that's part of the problem. I had larger rocks that were not spalled. And so, but I thought compensating for slow heating would make the larger rocks heat more slowly, and then I wouldn't have any trouble. But that isn't what happened, as you can see here. The second one, still tried to heat it quite a bit at the beginning, or slow heating, lower temperatures. And what that line is on the left. Anyway, what I did is try to heat it up to 500, which I believe the one before this, I didn't go to 500. No, I did go to 500. And then what I did is I shut it off. I cooled it down faster and shut it off at 200. And there was still a lot of pot lids. It was quite brittle work. It's pretty much the same thing, had a tendency to break up in the oven. And again, the pieces were not spalled. I had larger pieces in it. I did have some pieces that I had spalled up. So there's always some of those in there. So on this one, I heated it for quite a while to dry the water off. That's pretty consistent. And then had less time. Well, I brought it up very similarly in temperature, but then had less time at each temperature to lower it down, thinking that, okay, I'm getting pot lidding, and I'm breaking it up because it's cooling too fast. So I'm going to try and cool it a little slower and take it down more interval of time, 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours. Batch 4, all I did is went up to 350 or 375 on that one. I still did a lot of heat, low heat at the beginning to drive off the water, but I only went up to 375 on that one. And then I shut it off and I let it just cool naturally. The sand really holds the heat a long time. I can leave it overnight and I stick my hand in there in the sand and it's too hot yet. So it does cool more slowly. And so this one here, I did spall the larger pieces. It was the best batch so far. The pieces worked pretty good. This one here, smaller pieces, spalled, larger pieces. Same thing, 200, did a good soak on it at a lower temperature and to drive the water off, and then went up to 375 and turned it off, and it turned out to be a good batch. So there's two factors involved. One is whether you have a large piece or whether you just heat it up and let it cool down. I don't know which one is the one that's doing the favorable conditions. I think it's the size of the pieces because, I read an awful lot. There's articles about this Edwards Plateau Chert and whether it's the heat treating of it and it's the size. Some people just throw them in the kiln, let them heat up, and then let it go down. They're not real fussy about taking it up and down. This is less sensitive than Knife River Flint. Knife River Flint is pretty sensitive to heating up and down, so you gotta, in contrast to this, you have to make sure you do the cool down cycle and do it for about as long as you do the heat up cycle. So batch 5 seemed to be doing what I wanted it to. So some of the observations that I come up with is, dry the stone 200 degrees from 4 to 40 hours, depending on thickness. And I did find that increasing heat 25 degrees every hour to reach the desired temp was better. Otherwise, I jumped 50 degrees. And some people jump 100 degrees. I don't, I don't know how that would work. Hold for 2 to 4 hours, depending on thickness of the stone. And smaller, thinner pieces, and small, larger pieces that respond best, which makes sense. And that's it. Any questions?
Have you ever tried a large preform or void line?
No. If I make a blank and it's in good shape, I hate to ruin it. So I typically, a lot of those are smooth and make it's all together.
You guys are breaking, but
That would be ideal, really, to do the blank and then heat that, because it's thinner, and what you have then is you have the outside of it nice and, the texture of it is just perfect for pressure flaking or doing some light percussion flaking.
So I'll ask this on ignorance. Did prehistoric people do something similar? Did they heat up their stone?
Yeah, if they could get hold of a turkey roaster. What they would do is
Bury their artifacts in there.
round fire pit and then pack clay around it so that there was a little buffer between the heat and the stone, and then go fire. That'll, you'll get it up 600 degrees that way.
Is there any evidence of that? There's actual evidence that you found there in digging in this?
They found a bunch of bifaces buried once
Oh, okay.
in sand, like described.
And then replication too.
Yeah.
So.
And you can see it when you find flakes, you go, that's been heat treated. So you know what you're doing.
There were any days and stuff like that? Chinese are probably doing it before,
Here in the state, here in Kansas, and possibly up here, it's only during the late archaic that you see it done a lot.
Okay.
Prior to that, not so much. But again, that might depend upon your source material too. Do you have to do that? Or?
Oh, sure.
One thing, Stanley always did an awful lot of work on Knife River Flint, and he wasn't aware of heat treating back a while, and so he had to try it. I read his reports that he wrote, but what he never did document a formula for what temperatures to go up and that sort of thing. So that's really the experimental part of that. And the other thing too is if you're not expecting to find some heat treatment in the collections that you're looking at, you probably aren't going to see the darkening or the luster that's a little bit different than the rest of the Knife River Flint that you see. But again, it's done. It's just is kind of rare for Knife River Flint for the most part.
Yeah. So when you increase the rate you ramped, then did you see fragmentation, or did your material explode at a much higher rate? Is that why you settled on 25-degree increments, or?
seems like it had already broken up by then. So I don't know, I think the heating up cycle breaks it more than the cool down.
But if you do it at a faster rate, then it tends to be a higher rate of
Um,
loss or breakage.
Smaller pieces, no. With it will, potentially, depends on if the water is trapped and how bad, and if it has natural cracks in it. It does not fix cracks. Heat treatment will not fix cracks. They'll still break. And so if you got a bad rock, it's a bad rock.
Do you think that this, that like the Edwards Plateau and the Knife River Flint, the ideal process for heat treating them supports that maybe prehistorically people were using different techniques on different materials for heat treating them?
I doubt it. I don't know. I've not read any evidence of actual difference in that. The ones that I, like the Everest Plateau, the work that's been done there, they're using different, some sort of mechanical heat process. Ovens are good, leave them up to 500, and you don't mind some rock exploding in there. Because they will, yes.
I was wondering if you ever thought about adding to this experiment with Swan River Chert. Is that something you can get a hold of pretty easily or not?
No, I can't. I wouldn't mind. I definitely work with that if I could. But getting a hold of that is, I don't know.
Okay.
I know it comes from Canada and gets pushed down here
Yeah.
by the glacier, but used quite a bit in Minnesota. But really the next thing that I plan on doing is quartzite. I want to try and heat the quartzite that mixed discussions heard about that on heating it, whether it really helps, how much it helps, that sort of thing. And I think fine grain quartzite probably would respond pretty well. But I also heard that, or read, one of the things when you're heating it, you cool it down and then break off the outsides of it and then throw it back in the kiln and heat it up again, go through the same cycle. And that outside part that you break off is more workable. So I don't know that for a fact, but I'm thinking some good quartzite, some Bijou Hills. I've got some, but I don't have some good stuff. It's quite weathered, and I don't suspect it would work very well. It's gonna break it up. But people, from what I read, take it up quite a ways, 700 degrees or more for heating it. I thought about throwing some Sioux quartzite in there, taking it up to about 2,000 and see what happens. Probably wouldn't be an explosion.
Before you try the Bijou Hills, let's say here's your collar. Tap on it, see what kind of sound it has. If it rings well, it's probably going to heat really well, is my guess.
Okay. Yeah, because you can tell when it's falling,
Right.
you get that good sound out of it. I just got a batch, someone said really great about from Texas, and there was one rock in there that was really good. It was a big rock, this big, and about that thick, and it just falls beautifully. I got about a dozen pieces out of it that are usable, and it just looks like a regular rock from the outside. It's hard to tell, but somebody was suggesting I should check the gravel pits around here, see what I can find. It's hard to find rock now, but people have determined that it's worth a lot of money. Georgetown, which was probably one of my favorites to work. It's great, very forgiving. Forgiving, I mean, if you don't hit it exactly right, it doesn't break it in half. It just maybe takes the flake off differently. That stuff's up to about 10 or 12 pounds, $10 or $12 a pound. And so I used to buy it for about $3. And it's good, it's worth it, but it's expensive as heck. So I don't really buy much of that. I take chances